Hey everybody, so my channel is shadow banned. YouTube likes to mess with me a lot, even when I post comments on other people's channels and stuff. And so those who are on my channel have, probably been here for a while, but I know I've gotten a few new people here and there. Excuse me. But what I do on this channel is a mixture of a lot of different things, but part of that is I'll come on and address certain stuff, certain behaviors, as they come up in my own life, as topics are kind of brought up and whatever, and that's what this video is going to be. Again, I have my BA in psychology. I finished most of a Master of Science in Marriage and Family Therapy. So if you go back on my channel, I have playlists, and I've done a lot of teachings, and I've explained a lot of stuff regarding psychology, inner healing, deliverance, integration, etc. But anyway, so, I've talked about this friend that I had who came into my life last autumn. And I don't know how long she was in my life the first go around. It might have been a month or two, month and a half, I think, maybe. And this person abruptly ended our friendship via text message. No verbal discussion. And then I think I had reached out to her a few months later, just in pure desperation, because she had been mentioning that she might have some job openings at her place and she might be able to hook me up with a job. And so I reached out just in desperation, and we ended up, reconciling as friends. And excuse me. And then she was only in my life about a month before she ended our friendship abruptly again via text message again. And she just popped into my life again yesterday, over 2 months later. And I'm not going to get into too much detail, but I just want to say this. Now, I know recently in videos I've talked about how we need to be following Matthew 18:15. We ought to be going to each other and trying to resolve things, and whatnot. However, at the same token, sometimes you can just see the writing on the wall. And some people would argue that, you shouldn't make assumptions. And yeah, and I preach that. I preach, don't make assumptions. But when you've lived life long enough that you know how people are, and you know how, like you know the probability, you know what I mean? Of like, yeah, odds are it's going to go this way. You know what I mean? And I used to not really give that much credit, but it's like over the last few years, every time I've been like, all right, well, maybe I'm wrong. Let me not make an assumption. It's always been proven right. Like I was able to predict how it was going to go. And, some people would argue that, oh, that's because you made it go that way subconsciously and blah, blah, blah. Whatever. You can sit here and argue everything and anything until Jesus comes back, but nonetheless, the issue that I want to address here is, yes, first and foremost, you should be having a verbal conversation with someone, ideally face-to-face. I went over that in a recent video, yada, 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 okay? But let me just put another aspect on top of all that. You should be doing that fairly quickly. I know different people have different, cool down periods. Some people need a few days, which for some of us, that seems like too much time, But, okay, whatever. Even a week, whatever. Maybe even 2 weeks at, like, the utmost extreme. But, like, this person comes back over 2 months later, and now she wants to rehash everything? Now she wants to get into everything? Just, don't do that. Don't wait over 2 months. I mean, yeah, it's better late than never, but see, here's the thing, like, she meant a lot to me. She was the one person I had in my life. She was the one, like main support system in terms of, like, being able to call someone up and talk to them verbally, okay? And she just up and left, and she did that twice to me, and, and she knew that I have some abandonment and rejection issues. I'm nowhere near triggered like I used to be when I was younger, because I have gotten a lot of healing and whatnot. But, that's still kind of a a sensitive thing for me when people just up and go, And I mean, that would be for anybody, And I was quite upset for quite a while. And it was because of how things transpired that day when we had our falling out that I was actually triggered. She gave me cause to, go reopen the door to my ex, which I wasn't supposed to do. And I'm not blaming her for that. That's still ultimately my decision. Okay, all our decisions are our responsibility. But your own weaknesses and your own propensities, and that when you're triggered, you're more, prone to do things that you shouldn't do, and so on and so forth. And so anyway, when I reopened the door to my ex, I had him over here a few times. He was helping me out with some stuff around the house, and I was so upset, and I couldn't stop talking about it. And I even had him, read the text message thread and all of that. Him and I both were, rereading it, and I was like, am I wrong? If I'm wrong, tell me, because him and I have that just blunt, open kind of relationship. And he's not afraid to tell me, yeah, I do think you're wrong here, or, whatever. And he was like, no, April, you're not wrong. And so it took a little while, it took a few days for him to kind of, calm me down and everything. But I finally, let it go, and I was resolved in my heart, okay, I didn't do anything wrong in this instance. And now this person comes back over 2 months later, and they want to claim that I did them wrong, this, that, and the other, and now they're claiming that, oh, you never accept blame for anything, which is absolutely absurdly ridiculous, because I am humble. I do examine myself. I'm willing to look in the mirror, okay? And, and she wants to get all technical, and, and... But even if we put all that aside, this person is now, trying to tell me that everything I'm doing in my life is wrong, that I'm supposedly not hearing from God, that I'm not obeying God, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, can you give me some examples? You're not backing up anything you're saying. None of this is resonating as true, So I just want to tell everybody, if you have a falling out with somebody, regardless of who's to blame, you should be following Matthew 18:15, and you should be doing it fairly quickly. Don't wait 2 months later. Because that person now is going to be less prone to hearing you out when they've already had 2 months to settle the matter in their heart without you, because you did not show up to discuss it at the time. Okay? Let's just be real here. Something happens between you and whoever, and you're upset about it, and yada, 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 and that person just decides that they're going to block you, that they're just going to stonewall you and walk away and not discuss it. Well, all you can do at that point is resolve it between you and God and whatever support system you may or may not have. And if you've resolved it, especially if you've concluded, okay, in this instance, I actually wasn't to blame, and then this person comes back months later, or worse if it's even longer than that. Some people don't come back for years. Odds are that person's not going to really see it your way, because they've had all that time to resolve it in their heart, because you didn't show up. So, yeah, showing up to talk about something late is better than never. But let's try to, do things the right way from the outset. Something happens, if there's a misunderstanding or whatever, excuse me, you should be doing Matthew 18:15, but you should be doing it fairly soon. You need a few days to cool down, you need a week to cool down, maybe even 2 weeks to cool down, whatever. But once it gets to the point where it's several weeks or months, or God forbid, years, don't expect that other person to be so, I don't know, prone to see it your way. The best time to get someone to see something your way is pretty much immediately. When everything is fresh in everyone's memory, okay? Because I know from listening to other people, and then even in this instance right now in my life, I know, it's been 2 months. Life is short. I don't have a lot of energy to be expending on a lot of stuff. Yes, when you mean something to me and something happens right here and now, I will expend all kinds of energy in the here and now. But once you've rejected me, you've blocked me, you've stonewalled me, you've abandoned me, you've walked away, and I've had to resolve it on my own, at that point, it's more difficult for me to see it your way when you finally decide to come back. And the other point that I want to make is this. This friend of mine, quote unquote, if she's really a friend, if she's really valuing me and respecting me as a human being in her actions, then she's not going to put me on a shelf for 2 months and then take me off the shelf 2 months later. Okay? You got to think about this. You have to have empathy for other people. People who just up and go and then come back at their convenience later on, are they really having empathy for your heart? Are they really respecting you? Are they really conveying through their actions and decisions that they value you, that they care about your heart, the effect that they're having on you? Yeah, I don't like to be alone and I want a good quality support system and blah, blah, blah. But at the same token, I'm not going to be someone's object that they put on and off a shelf. So this is food for thought for both sides of the coin, both parties in this kind of scenario. Do you want someone in your life who has this, who off the bat is showing you this pattern, this cycle, that they're going to put you on a shelf, take you off the shelf, put you on the shelf, take you off the shelf? And if you're the one perpetrating that kind of behavior, then you need to repent. You need to examine how you're not having empathy for people and you're playing the victim. This person is showing me some mild narcissism is what this comes down to. And of course, narcissists always accuse their victim of what they themselves are guilty of. She's claiming that I never accept blame for anything. That's absolutely bullcrap. I do accept blame for stuff. I know I'm not perfect. I know what my flaws and weaknesses are and yada, yada, yada. But now you come back after 2 months, number one. And number two, not only is that what's going on here, but number two, she comes at me and she claims that she has a message from God, and none of it really resonates as true. And she's criticizing me, telling me, oh, well, you should have left for Tennessee a long time ago, and you're not listening to God, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, really? Because God keeps showing me that I do hear from him. God keeps affirming me every time I doubt myself. Every time I ask him to check me, he affirms me, he confirms me. And regarding, the specific content of moving to Tennessee, the right door hasn't opened yet. And I haven't had his peace yet. And no, I'm not just going to up and go impulsively, irresponsibly, foolishly, which is how this person lives their life. They just up and go because they make 90-something an hour, and they can just, live in a hotel and whatever. And they also have pay stubs where they can just secure a place to live very easily. I don't have pay stubs, and I don't make 90-something an hour, and I can't afford to just stay in a frickin' hotel. And living my life that way with major life decisions, to me, is not wise. It's foolish, it's irresponsible, it's immature, and it's impulsive. Yes, I'm venting a little bit, but the point still remains. Don't let people do this to you, and don't be doing this to people. You have some kind of rift in your relationship, then handle it. Take care of business then and there. Take a few days or however much time you need to cool off. But if you need 2 months to cool off, you got a problem. Because that's more than just cooling off. That's putting someone on a frickin' shelf. That's disrespecting them. That's not having any empathy for them. And I know a lot of people would agree with me that even taking a week or 2 weeks would be too much time. That would be disrespectful and unempathetic because you're putting them on a shelf. So in my personal opinion, I think at most it should be a few days, at most, that you take to cool down, think things over, pray, whatever. And even then, there should still be some kind of communication, not blocking people. There should still be some kind of communication of like, hey, I need a couple days. I'll call you on Wednesday or whatever. Nowhere in the Bible does it say, oh, take 2 months and then go to your brother and sister. Right? It says go to your brother and sister. So, yeah, again, I validate coming to to try to talk about things late is better than never. But let's try to do things right from the outset. Misunderstandings happen. People get offended. Things get miscomprehended. That happens. That's life. But when it happens, try to handle it right. Deal with it then and there, as soon as possible. Because if you don't do that, if you abandon that person, you reject that person, you stonewall that person, which is what blocking is, you're stonewalling them, you're abandoning them without any explanation, without any care for their heart, you're basically sending the message that that person is worthless to you. If you do that, that person has to resolve things on their own, without your input, without your influence. And once they do that, and then you come back later, you're going to have difficulty influencing them to see it any other way. It's just how it is. Because now you've got a compounded factor of the fact that they feel like you put them in the trash for however long. And now you're pulling them out of the trash because it's convenient for you. And I know people who operate that way, either out of necessity or just it's how they operate. But, you know, some people, they'll put someone on a shelf, treat them like trash, whatever, walk away, block them, and then all of a sudden, when someone else walks away from them, when their support system shrivels up, or they're not getting the attention or the support or whatever they need elsewhere, oh, now they're going to pull you out of the trash. Now they're going to take you off the shelf. Now they're going to come back. You got to be careful about people's motives. So, I got to get in the shower and get going here, but resolve things with people as quickly as possible. Have a verbal conversation. If you can, have a face-to-face conversation. And do it as quickly as possible. The more the time passes, the less probability you have of reconciling that relationship.